What's up everyone, today we're going to be talking about the 3 camera settings that are going to get you off the auto mode into manual mode. Aperture controls the amount of light that gets into a photo. It is represented by f-stop. It can go as little as f1.2 or as high as f22. The lower the aperture, the brighter your image will get, and then the higher the aperture, the darker your image will get. To help you visualize what I'm talking about, here's an image number 1. ISO is 200, shutter speed is 1/100 of a second, and then aperture is 2.8. It is a perfectly lit photograph, not too dark, not too bright. But then compare that with image 2 with the same ISO and the same shutter speed, but we've brought up the aperture to 5.6. You can see how it got a little bit darker. And then relatively the last image is once again the same ISO and same shutter speed, but the aperture is now 10, and you can see it's pretty much blacked out. A lot of photographers tend to pick the lowest aperture possible to get a nice depth of field. Now if you don't know what depth of field is, don't worry, I'll be covering this in the future videos, but for the moment what you need to know is aperture controls the amount of light that gets into your photo. So then we have shutter speed. Shutter speed controls the shutter and how long it stays open for. It can stay open for a very short time or a very long time, both giving you completely different results. With a high shutter speed, you can freeze things in your frame, for example somebody running or a bus driving past. Or if you want to pour a liquid, that will also freeze it, making sure it's nice and crisp. But then on the other hand, if you want to create a waterfall that is very silky and creamy and smooth, you will use a slow shutter speed in order to create that effect. It is also important to note that shutter speed also controls the light. So the lower the shutter speed, the more light will get into your photo, and then the higher the shutter speed, the less light will get into your photo. So sometimes you might have to compensate by bringing your aperture up or down if you want to create those effects, or using external lights. So to visualize this, yet again, here's an image number 1. It has been taken with an ISO of 200 and an aperture of f11. The shutter speed is 1/4 of a second, meaning that the shutter stays open for quite a long time. So when we poured the coffee in, the liquid became quite blurry. The second image, we brought the shutter speed up, meaning that the sensor catch the liquid pouring in a lot faster, but we had to bring down the aperture to 2.8 to bring a lot more light in. And then lastly we have ISO. ISO is another way in which you can control light in your photos, but you have to be very careful with this one because a high ISO will introduce a lot of noise in your pictures. So if you want to have the most clear pictures, you have to ensure that your ISO is on the lowest possible number. A lot of cameras have a base ISO, which is the most optimal ISO for your pictures, and it is usually in around 200. So make sure you're shooting low, and if you have to bring a lot more light into your photo, either use external light or bring down your aperture or shutter speed. So that's it for today guys, and that's all about the holy trinity of photography. I hope you understand the aperture, shutter speed and ISO a little bit better now, and the next time you go shooting, drop the auto mode, dive in straight into manual mode. I promise you it's a lot easier than you think it is, and hopefully you will start creating a lot better photographs soon and be more comfortable with the camera that you're using. Also, if you haven't done it already, please like this video and hit the subscribe button down below, and stay tuned for more videos.